Rodgers' future is hanging in the balance. Would he really leave football for Jeopardy? What is maybe? That is correct. Bill Belichick's heir apparent is going to have some extra large shoes to fill. Do they already have that guy in-house? And the King appears to be going solo mode tonight. Does he need to score 40-plus for the Lakers to have a chance without AD? Good Tuesday morning, everyone. This is First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds. Fun show for you today. A bunch of different things we're going to get to. But, Nick, does your guy LeBron have to be Superman to save this series?
No, he's just got to be the king. Just being himself should be enough. Save the series, Jenna. It's 2-2.
Man,
2-2.
I know, but we panic. That's what we do. We're such good panickers. Have you met me? We'll get to that in a second. We must start, though, in our nation's capital. Sixers-Wizards game 4. Oh, no, Joel Embiid. Philly was going for the sweep, and it looked like a no-brainer until Joel Embiid banged his knee on a hard foul. He did stay in the game, but a few minutes later, he was seen limping to the locker room. He never returned. Wizards would go on to win the game and keep the series alive. Embiid's status remains unclear now for tomorrow night's Game 5. If he cannot go, that would put the weight of the series on Ben Simmons' shoulders. Tall task, because he's only having the second worst free throw shooting performance in playoff history. Dubious honor. But Doc Rivers still has trust in his star Ben Simmons. Take a listen.
Does the thought cross your head at all to take him out of the game there?
No.
Why not?
You want me to take Ben Simmons off the floor?
No, I mean, I got to ask the question.
I will pass on that one. He's pretty good, so I'll pass on that suggestion.
I know that obviously not one person saves the day, but I think when Joel is in trouble and gone and fans want Ben to save the day because they look at him as the other cornerstone and they feel like he delivers less than what they're expecting. Is that fair for them to see it that way?
No, but you guys keep this Ben Simmons narrative alive, which to me is freaking insane, how good this guy is and all the things he does. Ben is not a 40-point guy. It's not what he does. He does other things for your team. And I just don't understand why that's not sinking in our city.
All right, let's kick this conversation off with Ben Simmons. Nick, what do you make of Doc's defense of that other cornerstone, as the reporter put it, Ben Simmons?
Okay, so there's a lot here. On Doc, listen, that's one of the reasons Doc is Doc. And I say that in a complimentary fashion, not in a negative fashion. I don't know that Doc Rivers is, one of the 3 best in-game adjusters in basketball. In fact, I think he's not. I don't know if he is one of the 3 best tacticians in basketball. In fact, I think he's not. But he is, without question, one of the 3 most beloved and respected coaches in the league by players in the league, Paul George maybe notwithstanding. And that's because not only, did he play himself, but more importantly, he always comes to his players' defense. So in that regard, that is Doc doing what Doc has always done. In regards to the meat of his statement, listen, I totally agree with him. I understand the frustration with Ben Simmons for 2 very specific reasons. One is you saw what he was offensively as a rookie, and he's never really gotten much better on that end of the court, so you didn't see the improvement. And the other reason for frustration is the hole in his game is so incredibly glaring that his refusal to take jump shots, it stands out to you. But Doc is absolutely correct that Ben Simmons last year was an all-NBA caliber player. This year, I believe he should win Defensive Player of the Year. He'll probably finish second to Rudy Gobert. And he is a massive positive on winning. He does have a hole in his game offensively. And I would argue we have seen a guy be league MVP, a unanimous league MVP, who his team takes off the court in specific situations at the end of games because he's a liability defensively. And nobody bats an eye. The Warriors have done that to Steph Curry throughout, not so much recently, but when they were winning titles, particularly before KD got there were spots where in the final minute of a close game, they would take him off and go offense-defense because they didn't want him to be attacked defensively. We don't allow the same margin for error, if you will, for guys who maybe should come off the court offensively at times, and I think Doc maybe should consider that. But Ben Simmons, one of the 25 best players in the league. I understand he's frustrating. I understand he's not complete. I understand he hasn't had, Brandon, the improvement you would have liked to see for some from the #1 pick of the draft. But I think he was the defensive player of the year this year. So I agree with what Doc's saying, and I understand why he's defending him.
Yeah, Nick, you're 100% right. Doc was spot on. It was a conversation that needed to be had. We know who Ben Simmons is. We just haven't accepted it. Ben Simmons is a world-class defender. He's an elite distributor. We know exactly who he is. Like, it's okay for us to put a guy in the box or say, this guy, Ray Allen, he's deadly from three. That's why we have him on this team. He's a three-point shooter. Dennis Rodman, rebounder, defender. We got this guy we're going to just bring in just for defense, or this guy just for rebounds. So we just have to accept exactly what Ben Simmons is. Now, I'm guilty of this. Last year in the bubble, I was on this case. I was one of those guys talking about, man, you need to develop. You need to ascend to another level. Now, he does need to continue to work on his game. That is a huge gap. You didn't take 1 3 last night. We need to see him take his offensive game to another level, but that's not what he is. On a good night, he's going to give you 20 points, but he impacts the game, Wilds, in so many different ways, and we just have to accept that. It's time for us to accept that. Now, 45% from the free throw line, that's a problem. That's unacceptable. Now, that was unacceptable for Shaquille O'Neal. I'm sorry, Shaquille O'Neal never got it right, but if you are a pro, a basketball player, you make it to that level, your butt better be able to knock down the free throw line when the game's on the line.
Because you're shooting 80%, Brandon.
Brandon.
That's right. That's right, Jenna.
As a former player, oh gosh darn it, the rim is 9-6 when you're shooting. For goodness sakes,
it was 10-3.
So Brandon, as a
10-3.
Okay, that's even worse. Still not regulation. You shoot him too far.
I know.
Okay, Brandon, as a former player, do you how much does what Doc Rivers said galvanize the team? When Ben Simmons knows that he missed those free throws, he knows that he was fouled 4 times in a span of 100 seconds and then went up there and bricked them, and that was one of the reasons why the Wizards were able to come back and win the game. But Doc, in an amazing show of leadership and a little bit of mental gymnastics, flipped it on the media. The media's like, hey, Doc, excuse me, do you think it's fair? I don't know, you guys are insane. You want me to take Ben Simmons out the whole game? Like, I'll pass on that suggestion. Like, it wasn't a suggestion, we're just asking. So to me, it seemed like textbook, protect in public, criticize in private. But if you were on the team, how much would that galvanize seeing Doc go to bat for you?
I don't think it galvanized this locker room. The locker room is already together. I think it settles this locker room. When you walk in off that court after a game like that, emotions are high. So you're going to see Embiid sitting on the training table with ice on his knee, and he's going to have a frown on his face like, bro, you couldn't bring this home. You couldn't get this done. I want extra days to rest. You're going to see other guys in the locker room. They understand the story. They hear the narrative too. Some of those guys are buying into it. So with Doc Rivers standing up, Nick, and saying, look, Ben Simmons is our guy. Now, those frowns, Embiid, they have to accept it. So it settles that locker room so guys don't have to carry that chip on their shoulder, because it is an issue, but they have to address it because, who he is a guy, like Doc said, he's going to impact the game in other ways. He's not going to drop 40 points. Now, 45% from the free throw line, that is a problem.
Yeah, and that would be a problem if I thought that was actually what he is going to be from the free throw line. Listen, he's not a good free throw shooter, but he's 60% for his career, and he's not 60% in these playoffs. But again, he's shot 20 free throws. And it's nerdy analytics for a moment. If you are above 55% from the line, the hacka whomever strategy is a bad one for the opposition. Because if you're at 60%, then it's 1.2 points per 100 possessions, and they are going up against a set defense. What nobody ever considers with the hack-a-guy strategy is when you get the ball back, you're going up against a set defense every time. So if Ben just shoots 60%, the Sixers will welcome teams doing the hack-a-Ben strategy. This was a one-off of a desperate team trying to avoid a sweep when Simmons was in a terrible free throw shooting slump. So I don't think this is going to be something you see in the playoffs moving forward.
Okay, can you say that one more time and just slow it up? Because you went in and said, "Oh, wait, sorry, I don't want to get nerdy on you guys."
So
and then you went into all these numbers
and
analytics.
Okay, I won't take an hour. Just think about it like this. Think about it like this. If you shoot 60% from the line, you're expecting 1.2 points every time you go to the line, and the defense is set.
Right.
The defense being set after those free throws is a huge part of it. So I don't think the Sixers mind it, Jenna. Sorry.
Right.
I was just trying to...
No, but what the Sixers might have issue with is what's going to happen with Joel Embiid. We'll talk more about him and how long that absence could be coming up. Let's switch some gears. Talk about this guy, Bill Belichick, of football. Here in the New England Patriots might have a post-Belichick plan. Is his heir apparent waiting in the wings at Foxborough? I can cross my hands just like you. Oh, I can stand just like you. Find out next. First things first. We're in Chicago, where it sounds like we might see Justin Fields sooner rather than later. Latest report, get this, guys, says the Bears won't sit the rookie just for fun or posterity in favor of QB1 Andy Dalton. Remember, they called him that. So, Brandon, the Bears holding an open competition between Fields and Dalton is blank.
Yeah, why is this even a conversation? Why are people talking about this? This is big business. We saw revenue the last couple years get to $16 billion. The National Football League is big business. You don't have time to wait anymore. You have to come in and perform right away, especially if you are the man for the job. The best man wins. So if he goes out there and he competes in OTAs, if he competes at a high level in camp and he goes out there and put together a nice preseason and he wins the job, why would we sit? I know Jay Cutler, my buddy, was on one of the radio shows in Chicago. Maybe it was Wild and Sylvie, whatever those guys. And he was talking about, he needs to sit a little bit because the adjustment out there is a little different because of the wind, because of the elements. Look, there is something to it. I remember one game, Alshon Jeffrey came to me and said, Brandon, on those deep balls, you got to be able to track where the wind's hitting. And I was like, I'm not Robbie Gold. I'm not a kicker. So there's a little bit to that. But if he is out there and he's playing at a high level, you play the guy. So this is big business. You can't wait. He has to come in and perform right now.
Okay, if we're giving random shout-outs to Chicago radio shows, Parkins and Spiegel, obviously the best in Chicago. Afternoons on The Score. Everyone should check it out. Danny Parkins, Great American. All right, Spiegel, very good as well. But the answer here is a total lie. Wilds, I'm not spending any time on this. Andy Dalton is not going to start the quarterback for the Bears. The hell, what are we doing? This is a lie. An open competition. Okay, sure, it's an open competition that the results have been fixed. Fields is going to start week 1. Ryan Pace drafted him smartly and extended his own shelf life as the GM by doing so. There's no competition. Andy Dalton, last I checked, is still Andy Dalton. So he's not going to start week 1 for anybody anymore. It's a total lie, Wilds.
Okay, I said great expectations from yesterday's jersey sales data that we saw. Justin Fields has jerseys selling number 3, number 4, and number 5. But I'm not going to start him week 1. Why? Because he's at Rams. Why don't you let Andy Dalton take that one? Why don't you just sort of take a look around, see how Aaron Donald's doing from the sidelines, and then start week 2 at home against the Bengals. That's just me, Brandon. I would like to have Andy Dalton face Aaron Donald, not me.
All right, good to know. In case you're out there, Wilds, let's head up to New England, where the heir apparent to Bill Belichick's throne is the topic du jour. Could Matt Patricia be the guy? They stand the same, they both wear hats, and they like shorts. Mike Florio thinks so. He wrote this: "Don't underestimate Patricia's chances. He has long been regarded as brilliant within the Patriots organization. Despite his inability to transplant the Patriot way to a Midwestern organization that has largely lost its way for the past 6 decades. The 46-year-old Patricia ultimately could be the ideal choice to continue things the way they started when Belichick arrived in 2000. Although, in my opinion, Belichick's not going anywhere for a while. But Brandon Patricia taking over for Belichick would be blank."
The wrong guy. Maybe it's still a little fresh. When he was a defensive coordinator, guys loved him. I actually enjoyed talking to him before the games and after the games. But as a head coach, wasn't well liked, wasn't well received, wasn't the guy. I remember going there for probably my last trial. This is when I knew it was over. I flew into Detroit, and I remember just laying in the bed before my work. I was like 1, 2 in the morning, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my career is over. I'm about to go play for Matt Patricia. Because all I heard leading up to it was, Brandon, don't come. Brandon, don't come. And then the next day, Nick, I promise you, the next day, the same day, because it was like 1, 2 in the morning, I wake up and I go into the locker room and I see all the guys and they're like, "What are you doing here, Brandon?" I said, "Well, I got a trial. You know, the Seattle Seahawks just cut me, so I'm trying to hold on just a little bit longer." And they looked at me, and this is a true story. We're talking about the superstars of the team. They were still close. They were still in the playoffs hunt. They were still there. And they said, "Brandon, don't come. Don't come." So for that reason, he's the wrong guy. Then you also have Josh McDaniels still sitting there in the wing. Josh McDaniels is a phenomenal coach. Now, he learned his lesson in Denver. Maybe Matt Patricia will over the next couple years, but you have Josh McDaniels. I think he is the right guy, and Matt Patricia is the wrong guy.
Brandon is throwing back the truth serum this morning.
By the way, well done, Brandon. That was great. I'm going to echo that without any of the experience. It's utter insanity. The last game Matt Patricia coordinated for the Patriots, he let Nick Foles hang 41 on him in the Super Bowl. The very next year, with him gone, they held the Rams to 3 points in the Super Bowl. He won 13 games total in 3 years as the Lions head coach. And not only evidently did players not like him, players were actively, as an act of service to other players across the league, trying to prevent people from coming there. They're not handing the keys to the car from Belichick to Patricia, Wilds. It's insane. It's not happening.
Okay, a few things here. My goodness, Matt Patricia, what a terrible decision to put Brandon Marshall down as a reference on your resume. Whoop, that one backfired in a major way. Not great. Take him off your LinkedIn. Not great. Here's the take. I am underestimating him. Jenna, out of the box idea here. When Belichick decides to retire, somewhere around 2050, let's just say, I think the Patriots should go in a totally different direction. I don't think you can even come close to walking in his shadow or continuing his legacy. So if Belichick is kind of like, you know, on sort of the Mount Olympus of coaches, and his demeanor is one way and his strategy is one way, I think the Patriots for the future would have to switch it up and go in a totally different direction to make a clean break, because the other person is set up for failure trying to walk in Belichick's shadow.
I think that's smart.
Like Doc Rivers, right? A people's coach, a player's coach, right? And we bring Doc in there. Time for the weird and wonderful from our national pastime. Fernando Tatis Jr. He's been on such a tear. And Ronald Acuna Jr. both going deep yesterday to keep pace with the major league lead, which is currently at 16. It's pretty fun to watch. It is pretty wonderful. Wilds has something even more weird and wonderful from baseball yesterday.
Okay, here is why baseball is a great sport. Because if you go to a Pee Wee football league, you don't see things that are happening in the NFL actually happen in Pee Wee football, like mistakes. But in Major League Baseball, Tim Anderson gets caught in the rundown, and meanwhile, they're like, "Oh, you can go home. You can clean." Like, "Oh, gee whiz, we forgot about this. We forgot it was a tag play and the run could score." That's what makes it so fun. Also, smart move from Tim Anderson here is who is serving as the third base coach. Step your game up, Mick Ewing, and running at the same time. And then finally, we'll move on to the weird. And this is just another basic one. This is sort of Little League 101. Mets Diamondbacks. And our guy, Sandpepper, trying to sneak in Mets highlights in the show. Hey, you got it, I got it. Oh, it was fall and there's a divot. So it's a little bit of golf at the same time. So that's your weird and wonderful from the national pastime, Jenna.
There was a divot on the
I like
throw,
getting
too.
Sandpepper into this show.
If you guys haven't been following this story, Naomi posted on social media a few days ago that in service of her own mental health, she was going to step away from doing media. The French Open responded, fined her, and said, we might not let you play. She then came out yesterday with this statement, saying, I think it's the best thing for the tournament, other players, my well-being, that I withdraw so that everyone can get back to focusing on the tennis going on in Paris. I never wanted to be a distraction, and I accept my timing was not ideal, and my message could have been clearer. So there was a lot of response throughout the media and the sports world. I think we have some of those tweets. If not, we can just get the discussion going. So the question is, she went on to say more. More importantly, I would never trivialize mental health or use the term lightly. The truth is, I have suffered long bouts of depression since the U.S. Open in 2018, and I have had a really hard time coping with that. She went on to say, I'm going to take some time away from the court now, but when the time is right, I really want to work with the tour to discuss ways we can make things better for the players, press, and fans. So a lot to unpack here, Brandon. Brandon, I would consider you one of America's leading spokespeople on the importance of mental health for athletes. Throughout your career and in your post-career, you've done a lot of work on it. So this touches a lot of things for you. What was your reaction to Naomi saying she didn't want to do the press, the French Open's response, and then her saying, you know what, I'm just going to withdraw from the tournament entirely?
Right. So, Nick, for the past 10 years, every May we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month. And this month has been phenomenal. And so my reaction on the last day of Mental Health Awareness Month was, wow, there's not a better way to have this discussion and to wrap up this month. So when you look at this discussion, it affects everyone. There's 8 billion people on this planet, almost 8 billion people on this planet, and almost 1 billion are personally affected by mental illness. And for everyone that is living with some type of mental health disorder, it touches 6 to 8 people. So when you really think about it, it's really touching everyone. If it's not you, it's your neighbor, it's your loved one, it's a friend, it's your kid's friend. So we have to take this conversation serious. The French Open missed their opportunity to lead this discussion in sports. You had one of the best athletes on the planet, Naomi Osaka, standing up, giving you a layup, giving you the opportunity to get it right. What they should have done is been more curious. They should have saw the signs. She communicated with you guys, and all you guys had to do is sit down and say, how can we help? What can we do? But instead, you chose to go to opposite end of this, on the opposite end of the spectrum. Why? Because in sports, we know who pays the bills. The TV rights, the fans. So we need our superstars standing in front of the camera, sitting on the podium before, during, after games, and sharing whatever information they can to keep the conversation going. But the reality is there's some people who may deal with anxiety. Some people may deal with social anxiety, where social interactions are uncomfortable, where it could be debilitating at times. It could be really uncomfortable. So Naomi Osaka, I celebrate you and I stand with you because you're pushing this conversation forward. We've seen this before with Kyrie Irving. We've seen this before with Cam Newton. We've seen this before. And now it's time for the French Open. Now it's time for Wimbledon. Now it's time for the NFL, the NBA to get behind this and change the narrative in the media and lead this discussion. It's time for us to no longer be 20, 30 years behind the cancer community. Where the cancer community was, it was the big C. It was so much stigma around it. It was a taboo topic. We have to have this conversation. Naomi Osaka, again, I stand with you and I celebrate you because what you're doing is you're keeping this conversation conversation going. It's on the forefront of our conversations in our country, and we need to have this discussion because it affects all of us, Wilds.
That was well said, Brandon. And I have a question for you, and you've been obviously one of the most outspoken leaders in bringing mental health awareness to a larger platform. How does that balance with, hey, my personal health is my business? You know what I mean? So, like, I thought it was especially brave for Naomi to be so transparent when she didn't have to be. So what is the balance between your personal decisions and your own personal health and what you view as a responsibility to destigmatize mental health?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Wilds, we got to take care of ourselves mentally, point blank, period. You know, when we look at athletes, we see the wealth, we see the big contracts. We see the sexiness of the athletes, how beautiful they are. We see the talent, we see the fitness level. But the reality is they bleed just like everyone else. And it affects all of us. If we just break down America, 320 million Americans, 100 million Americans personally living with something. And like I said, that stat holds true. Even if we just look domestically, for everyone, it affects 6 to 8. So we have to approach this conversation with an open mind. We can't have this conversation in a box. And we continue to put our athletes in this position as if they're superheroes and they're invisible. There's times where you need to take a sabbatical, and it's okay. It's okay to say I need a day. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say, you know what, this tournament, I'm not okay to speak. I'm okay to play, but something's going on in my life right now where I need to put some boundaries, some parameters around it so I can make it through. And I just think the way she's leading this discussion right now is needed. And then also how she responded after, saying, when the time is right, let's sit down and let's figure out how to make this better for the players, for the tournament, and for fans. It's amazing. She's a true champion, Nick.
And I do think it's telling that the people running the tournament, when they gave their statement about everything going on, the man gave a statement in French, gave a statement in English, and then he refused to take questions himself because he didn't want to take any questions. Like, nope, I'm giving my statement and I'm done. So here's, you guys are approaching it and looking at it from Naomi's perspective. I'm gonna turn it a bit from the French Open or from sports league's perspective. And the question I would have is this actually about fan access, growing the game, giving the paying customer what they want? Or is this about power? Because in my opinion, the way they reacted and their immediate reaction to Naomi was about power. They were trying to say, we are in charge, you are not. You are going to play by our rules, or else not only are we going to fine you, we're going to consider not letting you continue to play. Which, if the whole idea is growing the game and giving the paying customer what they want, there's not a paying customer in the world that was like, well, you can either have Naomi Osaka play and not talk, or Naomi Osaka not play at all. And they're like, nope, if she won't do the press conference, don't want to see if she can overcome some of her demons on the clay court. Not demons as far as mental health stuff. She's just actually struggled on clay. So to me, this was about power. And I think there is a very easy and obvious fix here, which is there are certain people that, whether it's mental health, whether it's social anxiety, or it's just fear of public speaking, that do not feel comfortable in a press conference setting. While I would feel great in a press conference setting, I would feel figuratively naked if someone was like, hey, go try to hit a backhand in front of 40,000 people. The opposite can be true for someone else. For those people, these leagues should absolutely present an alternative. Meaning, if you're really talking about growing the game, and Naomi Osaka, who I would argue grows the game purely by existing, but that is a different discussion, say, hey, we will take you at your word that the public speaking right now is not something you feel comfortable with. So in place of that, after after the French Open, we would like we got these options, whether it's a kids tennis clinic, whether it's something that grows the game, whether it's a endorsement campaign. We will give you alternatives. That way, anyone that opts out of the press avails is not just going to say, I don't feel comfortable, when in reality it's because they want to catch an earlier flight. And I'm not accusing Naomi of that at all. And you can actually grow the game. The fact that they didn't present that leads me to believe it's more about power. And it's about a young woman, particularly a young woman of color, in a sport of which there are almost none, except for, the greatest ever and one of the greatest ever, the Williams sisters and a few others, saying, I want to do things a little bit differently. And the French Open and the other Grand Slams saying, no, you won't. No, you will not. And we're gonna come down on you as hard as we can. So I think this is more complex than just Naomi specifically. And Brandon, I'll bring one other point up. Prior to this, the press conference or lack of a press conference that I remember being so controversial was Marshawn Lynch, right? He didn't want to talk. It was, I don't want to, I'm just here so I won't get fined, and we talked all about it.
So I don't get fined.
And then what did we learn, Brandon? That if Marshawn was comfortable, he's one of the most compelling, interesting, colorful athletes ever. It wasn't that he was being a jerk.
That's right.
He just was not comfortable in that space. But if you met him on his ground, or if you had a relationship with him like Kenny Mayne did or whatever, he's amazing. So maybe we should be a little more understanding of folks saying, why are you saying this? What can we do? And where can we meet you on middle ground? Because I do think the press avails have some relevance, but it's not the only way to get to where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, and that's why I said yesterday when we had this conversation about just the arenas, the security in arenas, in stadiums. And I pushed it farther and I said it also starts with our leagues, the NFL, the NBA. Like, they have to do a better job of appreciating and making sure that everyone knows that the athletes are human beings. And a lot of times we do a terrible job at that. And I talked about the media and being thrown in front of a camera 5 minutes after losing a Super Bowl, and you have to be super professional because you have to protect the shield, or you have to protect what the NBA is pushing or what they're talking about right now. So when you look at this, as far as from a media standpoint, you got to understand, like, it comes with it 100%. It's what grows the game. We love it. We understand it's what grows the players' brands. But there needs to be a little bit more gray and a little bit more, like what Wild said, that we have to do something a little bit differently for other people that may suffer from social anxiety or depression, or just had a bad day, for them to be able to step away from the camera, to step away from the spotlight, and it be okay. Because when you have 30 cameras in your face after a good game or bad game, and you may deal with something like that, it's tough because you keep getting grilled so many questions, and sometimes it is not a healthy environment. So it starts with the top, and that's our leagues, and then it goes down to the media. We have to change the way we talk in the media. And then another thing that you said, and I'll end with this, Jenna, Nick brought up, as far as, is it a power trip or is it them trying to grow the game? When you think about growth, and I looked at this case study with Live Strong, Lance Armstrong back in the day when I first set out on our nonprofit to really try to galvanize this mental health community. There's 36 million Americans that are personally affected by cancer. Look at the impact they made when they came together. There's 100 million Americans personally affected by mental health, by mental illness. If this community can come together, they can do the same thing for the Nikes, for the U.S. Postal Service, the Oakleys that the Livestrong's partner with. They can do the same thing for other brands. Livestrong was able to raise millions of dollars and do so much good for the community. And these brands, for profits, brought in billions of dollars. Just imagine what the French Open could have done, the conversations they could have started around business if they actually led this conversation. 8 billion people on this planet, 1 billion personally affected, and those could have been eyes drawn all on this one tournament, this very moment, if they handled it right, Jenna.
And clearly the French Open was not prepared for this. They didn't handle it right. It seems like they came out and they made a statement and they're going to figure it out. What's unfortunate is that Osaka, who just wants to play tennis, is unable to do the one thing she just wants to do because of what's actually her biggest fear right now. So, and not surprisingly, there's been so much outpouring support from her colleagues from around the sports world pouring in last night. Martina Navratilova tweeting this: "I am so sad about Naomi Osaka. I truly hope she will be okay. As athletes, we are taught to take care of our body, and perhaps the mental and emotional aspect gets short shift." This is what you were talking about, Brandon. This is about more than doing or not doing a press conference. Good luck, Naomi. We are all pulling for you. Russell Wilson tweeting, "We are with you, Naomi Osaka, #courage. And Venus Williams, who you talked about, Nick, showing her support on the gram, saying, "So proud of you. Take care of yourself and see you back winning soon." All right, we are going to set all that aside for now. Get back to the NBA. Talk some LeBron and the Lakers. No Anthony Davis tonight. So does LeBron have to go for 40 if they've got any chance of winning Game 5? We will discuss next. This is First Things First. Back here on First Things First, we are joined by Chris Broussard. Good morning, Broussard. We're talking some Lakers Suns. Game 5 tonight. Broussard, sounds like the Lakers are going to be without Anthony Davis for this one. The Brow unlikely to play Game 5 after suffering that groin strain midway through Game 4. So it is a solo mission for the King. Chris Broussard, I ask you, I've now said your name 9 times in this introduction. What does LeBron have to do for the Lakers, Broussard, to beat the Suns tonight without AD?
Well, Jenna, he has to turn back the clock. And this is as much about what Frank Vogel and the rest of the Lakers need to do as much as it is LeBron. And by that, I mean, I think they need to get away from what they've done most of the year, which is have LeBron play off the ball, which I think has been relatively effective, but have him off the ball. He's not always initiating the offense. Some guys are initiating offense for him at times. I think you have to go back to when LeBron James is the system. LeBron has to be the primary ball handler, not every single possession, but primarily he needs to be the one bringing the ball up the court. I think they need to let him control tempo, slow the game down. When you slow down the game in the NBA, you minimize the difference in talent disparities between two teams. So slow it down like he did when he was playing for Cleveland in 2015 when they were facing Golden State in the finals without Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. And he will create the offense for himself and his teammates. Andre Drummond, get him some easy buckets in a pick and roll at the rim. The other players need to be at the three-point line. LeBron will get them shots in drive and kick situations. Now, the other guys need to hit the shot. They're shooting 29% from 3 in the playoffs. They shot 35% during the regular season. So that's a big part of why they're tied 2-2 instead of ahead 3-1. Their shooters have got to hit shots. As far as statistically, I think LeBron needs about 36. I may be a little low, but I think 36 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds. I need a stat line like that at least. And as long as AD is out, he's got to average somewhere between 30 and 40 points a game for the Lakers to have a shot.
So what about 30, 12, and 9 on 60% shooting, 40% from 3? Broussard, would that get you close to what you're talking about? 30 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists, 60% from the field, 40% from 3 for LeBron.
If he can get Drummond to have a 20 and 14 game, and some of the other guys, I don't know if KCP, we'll see if he plays, but Wes Matthews, Ben McLemore, whoever it is, if they're hitting threes, then that'll work.
Because the reason I ask if 30, 12, and 9 on 60-40 splits would be enough is, in order to do that, he's going to have to turn back the clock all the way to October in the finals, because that's what he averaged. Everyone's got to calm down a bit.
Davis,
and I want everybody.
Anthony Davis.
and they also. I understand. And they also were up against a team that at the time was far better defensively than this Suns team is, with Bam and Jimmy Butler and that Heat team that was way better last year. I want everybody. This is like Brandon actually probably as well. Brandon and I are probably the only people on this show that have ever had some legal issues, maybe some outstanding warrants. Brandon, I'm with you on that. You ever get a letter where they're like, hey, there's amnesty day? Meaning, if you show up at the courthouse on this day, any of the fines for the outstanding warrants are going to be waived. We just want you to pay what you owe. I am offering to everyone on this show an amnesty for all the overreaction from yesterday. If they want to today do what I know the angel on your shoulder wants to do, which is be like, wait. It's a best of 3 and LeBron's looking the best he's looked since before the injury. I'm going to go with LeBron. Wait. For everyone on the Suns, other than Chris Paul and Jay Crowder, this is the biggest game of their life. I'm going to go with LeBron. Wait. Once in the last decade, a team other than the Golden State Warriors has ended LeBron's season. And 0 times in human history has LeBron's season ended in the first round of the playoffs. I'm going to go with LeBron. So we can, Brandon, Wild, Broussard, just think about it. I'll let everyone off the hook if they want to say I've come to my senses and I understand that LeBron will have his hand on the joystick. He'll control every aspect of the game. And I'm going to be like, that's why he's the best player I've ever seen. That's why. Brandon, you want to take it? Or else tomorrow's going to be ugly.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not going to waver. Look, I'm so glad you're doubling down on what you said yesterday. Wow. I'm going to steal a page out of Nick's book. What does he always say?
Okay.
I'm old enough to remember the conversation from yesterday. So what does LeBron have to do tonight for the Lakers to beat the Suns without AD? Yesterday, they just said nothing. They said they didn't need AD. So LeBron just have to continue to do what he did. Now, Nick, you did go on to say, look, he'll go from playing 36, 37 minutes to 40-plus minutes because this plus-minus ratio when he's on the court, it's just outstanding. So he'll play more, and then that means they'll probably control the game and they'll win the game. So nothing, Jenna, nothing extra. Even earlier on in the show, it was the A block, the B block, where Nick said he just has to be the king. That's all he has to do. Just be the king. So, look, I'm one that said it all falls on AD. I said this before the series started. I said this when we were back in April. Like, this is just AD. AD needs to be healthy. AD needs to go back to where he was in a bubble for this team to be a real contender, for them to repeat. Because when you go back to the bubble, when you just talked about October, Nick, AD played phenomenal. AD stepped up. AD was the one that hit the game winner. AD was the one that was dropping 36 alongside of LeBron James. So when you think about how the NBA is constructed today, you need 2 guys. Hell, sometimes you need 3 guys to get it done. So while, I'm glad that Nick is doubling down, and I see the bass in Chris Broussard's voice is like deflated right now.
Okay, we need a bass in the voice meter to see how confident people are. Broussard, here's the thing about the Suns. Everyone talks about the Suns being a 2-star team. Even our graphics you got Devin Booker, you got Chris Paul. There are 3 number 1 picks in this series. It's LeBron, it's Anthony Davis, and it's Ayton. I want to see Ayton deliver us the promise of the premise. Like, this guy can be a game changer. He's doing great offensively. Now, Anthony Davis is not here. If you can shut down Drummond and don't let Gasol get out there and hit some threes, this could be the biggest game of your career. And when people talk about the Suns, they have to mention your name. When you were drafted, we thought that this was the beginning of the Suns' renaissance, and it has been to a point. He's been good, 21-16, 22-10, 22-11, 14-17, but we haven't seen a good 30-point game all year from DeAndre Ayton. Broussard, if he comes out and dominates like a true number 1 pick, I think we could start rewriting the narrative on DeAndre Ayton, which has been written already a little bit. Like, good guy, good pick. Was he a dominant number 1? No. In other drafts, he would be further down the list. But he should come out, dominate, put his sort of star on the map, and make people talk about him. Well, not only when you're talking about the Suns, we're talking about great players in the league.
Well, I think the narrative partly has been written because of we don't have great big men anymore for the most part. You know, obviously there's a Joel Embiid and guys like that. But Ayton gets lost because he doesn't have the perimeter game of a Kevin Durant or somebody like that. And he doesn't, we don't just put him on the block and throw it down to him and say, go get it, big boy, anymore. So he's a guy that can do both. And I think in this series, it's been a coming out party for him. It's been a revelation for a lot of people. I think he's playing tremendously. And I think he actually, Wilds, what you said earlier, if he can slow down DeAndre Ayton Andre Drummond and play well against Marc Gasol, they can have success. He's the perfect big man for that because he has the height and the length to battle Drummond down low, but he also has the athleticism to get out and guard Marc Gasol at the three-point line. So I think Ayton's played well. Look, Devin Booker's going to score more points. Chris Paul's going to have the ball in his hands, but Ayton is playing like a terrific second or third star for them in this series. What
kills Ayton, Wilds, is that he's in the same draft as Luka and Trae Young. So it's that even if he's really good, he's not Luka and he's not even Trae Young, even though he's been very good in this series. I think the Lakers are going to play a lot of Marc Gasol, which will draw Ayton away from the rim, which will create driving lanes for LeBron. So listen, Wilds doesn't do picks because he's scarred. Brandon is tripling down on the Suns. Broussard. Once upon a time,
I'm glad you brought
you were the LeBron guy. I don't know what happened, but you lost your way.
You came out and just went crazy.
I came out and elbowed you off the corner. This is a chance, Broussard. You can get back on the corner. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to pick against LeBron tonight? Are you sure?
Well, let me say this. Yesterday, what I said is they don't win the series without Anthony Davis. Can they win a game tonight without Anthony Davis? Sure. But I still don't think they win the series unless AD returns and can play well. So tonight they can win. I'm going to go with Phoenix. But I wouldn't be shocked if LeBron wins. They got to win a series. It's not just one game. But I'll go with Phoenix tonight.
Well, if they go up 3-2, they win the series. That's actually how it works. It'll be over. If they go up 3-2 and you have LeBron James, the series is over. That's actually.
It's good to know.
Well, LeBron's blown a 3-2 lead in his career. Wait for it.
Oh, here he goes.
So
there was a time when LeBron had missed the playoffs before, Nick, and then 2008-19 came. I mean, come on.
And then in 2020, won the title. But then he won the title.
With Anthony Davis.
He won the title.
Which is the whole
we got to move on. We got to move on. But I'm still thinking about amnesty. Nick, remember when you got me out of that ticket that one time? I would believe this guy knows what he's doing. We got to talk some Sixers.
That's true. It's true.
Remember that?
Jenna had an arrest warrant out.
So good friend. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. Just leave it. Another team dealing with injuries to their big guy. How much pressure is on Ben Simmons now that Joel Embiid is going to miss some time? We'll have that for you next. First things first. I do appreciate it, though. It was really sweet of you. Super Bowl champ Greg Jennings joining us now. We're talking Packers. The latest report out of Lambeau says GM Brian Gutekunst is holding firm to the stance that he will not trade Aaron Rodgers. It has been over a month since we heard Rodgers didn't want to return to the team. Still no movement. Peter King has an idea where Rodgers might be this season, and it's not anywhere near a football field. Take a listen.
What happens between now and July 15th? Let's just say, if Jeopardy says, Aaron, we want you to be the host for our next season, for our 21-22 season, but we want you here exclusively. I mean, the condition of the job is you got to be here. I won't be shocked if Aaron Rodgers takes a year off from football. Now, and then we'll see what happens in the future.
All right, right, Greg Jennings, what is your reaction
music.
to Peter King saying Rodgers might take a year off from football?
Yeah, I love Peter King, and he does a great job. And I think for this one, though, that's a huge and ginormous if. And you just can't weigh everything on an if when you're talking about the MVP of the National Football League. And so I think what Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers are doing is the right thing. You gotta call the bluff of Aaron Rodgers. You gotta hold on to him. You do not let him go, period. I get it. It's disgruntled. It's tension, but you figure it out somehow. And the only time you see him on the football field and the only uniform you see him in next season, if he decides to play, is the Green Bay Packer uniform. Now, let's get into if he takes a year off. Aaron Rodgers is 37 years old. His entire reason for continuing to play and wanting to play, if it even is in Green Bay, is to win championships. The window doesn't open up in your latter years. Typically, that we don't see that unless you're Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers isn't Tom Brady. And so when we look at that, his best option to win and win now is with the Green Bay Packers with that current roster. And so I just don't see him at 37 years old saying, you know what, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to, if Jeopardy calls me and offers me the gig, I'll do that. And then I might consider coming back a year later, losing all the leverage. I'm no longer league MVP. No one has seen me play within a year. I just don't see that happening at this stage in his career.
Well, Greg, with everything we've heard about Aaron Rodgers and how he deals with conflict, I don't think it's far off. I mean, you talked about this, what was it, a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, about if you get on his bad side, if you cross the line, it's almost impossible for you to get back in good graces with Aaron Rodgers. Right now, there's a standoff. They should be able to sit at the table and come to a solution and navigate through this situation, get on the same page. In any industry, in any relationship, but they can't. And you got to look at the egos involved. So I can see this playing out. It doesn't make much sense to me because of everything that you said, Greg, with his age and even the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, I feel like they've wasted his career because they should have more than one Super Bowl, but they're still in position to contend. So it makes sense for him to figure this out and come back. But Aaron Rodgers is dug in. Aaron Rodgers said that he doesn't want to be there. Aaron Rodgers said it's about the people. If it's an uncomfortable work environment for him, he needs to double down on what he believes in, get uncomfortable, and get out of there. Like we saw James Harden do it in Houston. We've seen other players do it. He has the leverage. He has the power to do it, but he has to be willing to get uncomfortable. He has to be willing to have thrones thrown at his house. He has to be willing for us to have these conversations and start breaking down, things outside of football. Now, I don't know if he's going to do that. He stood up there last week, 2 weeks ago, and he said, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what's going on. So that was a step forward. So, wow, I want to see what Aaron Rodgers is willing to do. At one point, when he had James Jones go out there and speak for him, it's like, he's a little uncomfortable. And then a week ago or 2 weeks ago when he stood up on ESPN and he shared his part of it really quickly, it was like, maybe he is willing to be uncomfortable and get out of there. So we will see.
Yeah, I thought there was the opportunity to tell Kenny Mayne, hey, Kenny, just like you're moving on, I'm looking to move on too. And the fact that he didn't say that makes me think that he'll end up being in a Green Bay Packers uniform, Greg. And quickly on Jeopardy, although it's nice and he did a nice little job and he had some lovely, very professional looking suits, I would be quite shocked if Jeopardy, who is looking to find a long-term host, decided to hand the reins over to Aaron Rodgers for 1 year and then have him go back to football. I think Jeopardy is looking for a long-term solution, so I just don't think that makes a ton of sense. However, Greg, if he were to retire a la Andrew Luck, a la Tony Romo, I think the market for him when he came back would still be super hot. I'm still clicking on, does Andrew Luck want to come to the Patriot stories to this day? If anyone wants some clicks out there from your old buddy Kevin Wildes, you can put that headline up there right now. I just think that there's no matter, he's so good that maybe a year off, there would still be, a fever pitch to get him back on the field. Do I think he actually does it? No, because he also played last year with Jordan Love there, and I don't see what really changed. So I expect him to be back in Green Bay, and I don't see a ton of benefit from him sitting out.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think there would definitely be interest if he did sit out for a year and decided to come back. But let's just be real. Let's be real. Aaron Rodgers is 37 years old, and we're saying if he goes to or if Jeopardy says, "Hey, Aaron Rodgers, come on, let's be our host for a year," like you said. That's a huge if. That's Aaron Rodgers banking on that as well. He's not certain of that. That's him banking on that and hoping that this is a play that he has in his back pocket. Where right now, Brandon, you talk about Aaron Rodgers and the relationship and the riff and all of that, and it can be a potential option for him. I completely disagree. I don't think that he's really wanting to do that. I think he has great interest in Jeopardy if they say you're going to be our long-term host. But now he's at a crossroads because he still does want to play football. It's evident. He did not say, and you said he needs to get uncomfortable. Aaron Rodgers has to say, I want out. I want to be traded. If he then starts to speak that way, I think the roles change. I think the Packers have a great, big, huge decision to make and try to make something happen and get some real estate, get some assets for Aaron Rodgers right now and make that happen. If he does not say that, if he doesn't come out of his own mouth and say what we all felt like he had the opportunity to say a week or a week and a half ago, then he remains a Green Bay Packer, and he's not going anywhere.
Right. Makes sense. It's a good point, Greg. We'll take a turn. Nick's got some NBA playoff medals to hand out. Could Ja get one? Went 23-12 last night in Game 4, but the Grizzlies lost. And as it turns out, Ja did not get one. But Nick, who did make your playoff podium? I was asking to answer my own question.
Yeah, Ja almost got one. I actually wanted to give the gold to Greg's beard, which looks the best I've ever seen any beard on any man look. Credit to you, Greg Jennings, but they told me I'm not allowed, so here are the medals. Bronze medal, Russ. More on Russ in a moment. This is the most bizarre stat line I've ever seen in my life covering basketball. 19, 21, and 14 on 3 of 19 from the field. More on him in a second. Silver medal, Rui Hachimura. How about him? He gets a bronze, or silver, 20 and 13. So we get 2 Wizards on the medal stand. There's only 2 games last night. And then the gold medal, Donovan Mitchell, as the Jazz take a commanding 3-1 lead. If you stayed up late to watch that game, 3-point game with a few minutes left, you're like, oh, could the Grizzlies do it? And the same thing that happened in Game 3 happened again. The Jazz go on a run in the final 3 minutes and end up blowing the game open a bit. Donovan was the biggest reason why. 30 and 8. But Wilds, what to do with Russ? 19, 21, and 14 seems amazing. 3 of 19 from the field seems horrifying. Like, what do we do with that performance? It's making my brain melt. I don't know. Did he have a great
Solid
game
bronze.
or a terrible game?
Yes.
Like, what is it, Wild?
They want, you know what? It's that Ben Simmons-esque affecting the game. Don't look at the stat. We got the win. That's what it is. We got the win. That's all that matters. It's Draymond-esque.
Of course, Wild is just about wins.
Got the win.
I can't figure it out.
Got the win.
54 combined points, rebounds, and assists, and he might have had a bad game.
They're back in that series, so say no more. We got to talk about this series, Lakers-Suns. It is a solo act going into tonight for LeBron with no Anthony Davis. Does the King need to go for 40 for the Lakers to get a win? We'll have that for you next. First things first.
Greg, is that beard painted on?
Tonight, it is an AL Central showdown on FS1. Tim Anderson leading the White Sox against Jose Ramirez and the Indians. That is tonight, 5:30 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Oh, you know what time it is. It's time for stories to start your morning, and it's brought to you by Subway.
Oh, nice.
Talking Lakers-Suns, Game 5 tonight. See what I did there? Sounds like the Lakers are going to be without Anthony Davis after suffering that groin strain midway through Game 4. So that means it is a solo mission for the King. Nick, what does LeBron James have to do for the Lakers to beat the Suns tonight without Anthony Davis?
Remind everybody he's the King. I thought long and hard about yesterday's show after the show. Because we did the show, and then I just tried to spend some time with my family, but it's playoff basketball season, so I'm always a little distracted. And then these other playoff games started. And I'm looking at teams down 3-1 or trying to avoid going down 3-1. And I'm like, we talked about the Lakers yesterday, Wilds, as if they were down 3-1 in this series. They're not. It's a best of 3 now, and they have undoubtedly, the best player on the court. So why was everyone freaking out? And then I thought about some other things, which is like, well, how healthy does LeBron look? And I was like, well, Wild showed me a nice compilation of him spinning in the lane and dunking in traffic, of him jumping, levitating momentarily before dropping a perfect bounce pass to Ben McLemore. I'm like, oh, well, that's good. I'm like, well, so what about the shooters for the Lakers? And it's after the first, how many quarters was that? 15 quarters of this series. They were ice cold. They finally hit some shots in the fourth quarter. Like, well, that's good. So what do I expect to see tonight, Wilds? Expect LeBron to play 41 and a half minutes. I expect the Lakers to win those minutes by 13 points. For them to survive the 6.5 minutes he sits, losing them by 6 or 7, and the Lakers to win. And everyone to be like, oh, in a series where the other team has 2 guys with playoff experience. One is Chris Paul, and the other is Jay Crowder, who all of his playoff experience is LeBron James beating him. Every year of Crowder's career, he's like, God, dog it, this guy again. That's why he gets so mad when he sees him. He's like, I played on your team once, you traded me away, then you knocked me out of the playoffs again. So I think everyone has overreacted a bit. I think LeBron's going to be great. I think people are going to say, wait, we picked against LeBron in round 1? He's never lost in round 1. And I think that come tomorrow morning, there's going to be some, that's why he's been the best guy in the playoffs every year for the last decade. So that's what I think is going to happen, Wilds. I'm curious what you think, but that's what I think tomorrow morning is going to look like.
Okay, I think that certainly could happen. But I also think he's playing against not 2, but potentially 3 stars. We know Chris Paul is a star and his shoulder's looking healthy after he took all that tape off of it. We know Devin Booker is a star. But do we think DeAndre Ayton is a star? Well, tonight I think we see the old Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga in the supermarket parking lot. You know what? Bradley Cooper is going to look at DeAndre and say, you, my friend, are a star, and I am inviting you to come on the road, jump on my motorcycle, and perform at the concert tonight. You have to come out. This is the biggest game of DeAndre Ayton's career. He is a #1 pick. We had great expectations for him. Is he as good as Luka? No. Is he as good as Trae Young? Well, people right now would say no. But what if he came out and put up 30 points? AD is not out there. Andre Drummond can't stop you, and Marc Gasol is going to try to drag you out of the three-point line to hit his little jump shots. If you can get out there and defend him and then take advantage of the lack of AD, we could see a coming out party for DeAndre Ayton, a star turn for him. Bradley Cooper will be overjoyed. It'll be wonderful. So I'm expecting big things from DeAndre Ayton tonight. I think Suns win, Brandon.
100%. It's too much firepower.
Good, all of it.
I mean, you got CP3 that came in, totally transformed this team on the court. You got to accept that, Nick. It's not too late to jump off of this train. It's not too late. Buddy, you have the perfect out right now. Your #2 guy, AD, a guy that we were talking about last year as potentially being the best player in basketball and being now it's his team after the big shot that he had in the bubble. Like, he's down. He is no longer there. This is your opportunity to get off the train, but you refuse to do it, and you're doubling down. So I'm old enough to remember the conversation we had yesterday. Those are your words. You like to say that. So I just want to remind you of those things. And it's things that you've already said today on the show, right? It's they don't need AD to win. AD is not a factor in this series because they don't have a big that can really, that where AD needs to guard. And you didn't believe in. So look, buddy, if you want to take the opportunity, here's an olive branch. Go ahead and take it.
No, I won't take it. I don't think it's an olive branch. I think it's a poison branch, and it's a branch of. This is what you guys are asking me to do. Wild said something interesting. It's the biggest game of DeAndre Ayton's career. He's right. It's also the biggest game of Devin Booker's career. There's no doubt about it. It is one of the. I'd have to go down the list. One of the 10 biggest games of Chris Paul's career. To take control of a series against his buddy LeBron on the best team he's been on since the 2018 Rockets. I'm going to do this approximately. This is about the 173rd biggest game of LeBron's career. It's about 172. We can go down the list, but I don't think we have time.
But he needs help.
It's his 265th career playoff game. Brandon, here's the thing. He just needs guys to knock down the open threes.
Let me read this off. My notes from yesterday. Andre Drummond, 5 points. Schroeder, 8 points. Matthew, 6. Kuz, 11 points. It's not enough.
Okay.
It's not enough.
Well, in 22 hours,
I think we should all
we're going to be
go
on
back
the air, Jenna.
And rewatch the Bradley Cooper movie, and then
Brandon's
we'll discuss
gonna
this
be
tomorrow.
Gasol, 12 points.
Undisputed
22
starts
hours.
right
Not
now.
enough.
We're all just talking.